We want to especially welcome everybody watching online, and had some really cool interactions with some people today who watch us every week online and are watching live because their work schedules won't allow them to be. So welcome if you're watching online. We look forward to seeing you in person soon. And but as I was preparing for today, you know, we've been in this Momentum series, and we've been talking for the last 2 weeks specifically on prayer. If you were not able to be with us last Sunday, I highly encourage you to go to anchorlawrence.com/talks and watch that because I hope it'll bring value to where we're going, because that's the first step in growing and building momentum in our life. But have you ever met anybody? I want you to think really hard. Have you ever met anyone who you would consider to be selfish? Somebody you would consider to only be out for themselves. Everything they do, everything that they're about, some way, shape, or form builds them up in some way. Right? Have you ever met anybody like that? That it's like you take a step back and you're trying to evaluate and you're looking at like, man, what relationships do I have in my life? And you start thinking of people who are so self-consumed. Most of us probably have a face or a name that goes with that. It's like everything that they do is for their benefit. If we look throughout the history of humanity, I'm sure we could all agree upon that there's been some very self-centered people walk the face of the earth. Is that something we could agree upon? Okay? But I sought out to find out if this was actually natural. Were we created to be so self-centered? Were we created to be that way? Or is it a learned behavior? Because if we were all honest with ourselves, there are times to where we are very me-centric. Are you with me? It's like there's certain seasons and there's certain circumstances and events in our life that create us to be very maybe introspective to a point of unhealth, but we are very focused. We're focused on ourselves. But was that really God's intent when He called us His greatest creation? Was it really His intent for us to be so focused on ourselves that that's how we live our life? That's like the attitude at which we live by is being self-centered. I read an article in the 2016 Yale University Press. Google is an amazing resource. I've never been to Yale, obviously. But I hear they're pretty smart over there, or so I'm told. Way above my head, I guess, way above my pay grade. But in the last 20 years, they've been doing scientific research on this idea of, are we morally together or are we born separate? Do we look at things when we are created? Are we created to look out, or were we created to look in? And they've done research for over 20 years and discovered that people, get this, all around the world, they did this research worldwide. This wasn't just in the United States, are a lot more moral and a lot less selfish than most biologists had previously assumed. So we have this, you know what we do when we assume? We are making judgments based upon assumptions, which leads to us being what? Usually we're wrong. How many of you have ever made an assumption and you found out, oh man, that was like dumb? Come on. Like there was only 6 of us? The rest of you are lying. I mean, you are lying. We all make assumptions all of the time. We assume the worst about everybody. Why is that? It's also because we think people assume the worst about us. But get this. And this is what they went to conclude, that our moral commitments are surprisingly similar in reciprocity, fairness, and helping people in need, even if acting with these motives personally have a cost to us. There's also psychological research out there that is saying that self-interest is far from people's primary motivation, that we are prone to act for the good of others. Think about that. We were created to love. Who would have thought that the God of the universe, the creator of us, created us in His character, in His likeness? And if His DNA is surrounded in love, don't you think He would create humanity, His greatest creation, with that same DNA? So what happened to us? What happened? We're wired to think of ourselves because every time we turn on the TV, every time we drive and we see an advertisement, every time we look at the culture says, think of you first. We are wired into and created to think of others, but then we get completely wrapped up in culture and not wrapped up in Christ, and we start getting backwards. This shows we're created to serve, but taught to disregard others because it takes the focus off ourselves. You see, serving people is countercultural because we start thinking less of ourselves and more of other people. Serving other people is countercultural. I mean, you think about this for a second. You take millennials, they are very much into the, do something good for people. They want to give back. They want to make a difference. What is it about my generation, because I would not be a millennial, I'm probably the generation before, what got off the rails? What changed? Why did we become, as a culture, why did we become so self-centered? It's because we started taking our eyes off Jesus. We started taking our eyes off exactly who He created us to be. You see, if you really want to find happiness for yourself, get this, start helping others find happiness for themselves. Every time Brooke and I do weddings and we talk with couples who are getting married, and you can ask Dalton and Summer, I said this in their ceremony. If you wake up every day as a husband, as a wife, and you put out your goal to make your spouse's dreams come true every single day, I promise you, they will not only find happiness, but so will you. What happens when we start having more of the Christ-like DNA in our lives? We start focusing on other people, and we start finding more happiness than we've ever even imagined, dreamed possible. You see, God created us to love, which means we are created to serve. Let's look to Scripture to learn how Jesus feels about serving. So if you have your Bibles or you have the app on your phone, turn with me to Luke chapter 13, verses 1 through 17. Sorry, John. I don't know why I said Luke. My notes say Luke. That is not right. Luke just wants his name heard. He must have got in and edited my notes this week. John 13, verse 1 through 17. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for Him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved His own who were in the world, He loved them to the end, them being the disciples. The evening meal was in progress. That evening meal, this is to kind of give you this setting. This is the Last Supper Jesus is having with His disciples. And the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. So Judas had already left the building gloriously. Kind of give you the culture, where we're at, kind of give you the setting. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under His power and that He had come from God and was returning to God. So He got up from the meal, took off His outer clothing. I don't recommend you do that at dinner tonight, by the way. And wrapped a towel around His waist. Don't do that either. After that, Jesus poured water into a basin and began to wash His disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around Him. Jesus came to Simon Peter, who said to Him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." There's that principle of trying to understand things. "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you will have no part of me." Then Lord Simon Peter replied, "Not just my feet, but my hands, my head as well." Jesus answered, "Those who have had a bath," another sidebar, Jesus said, take a bath, "need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." For He knew Peter was going to betray Him. And that was why he's not clean. "And you are clean." And when He had finished washing their feet, He put on His clothes and returned to His place. "Do you understand what I've done for you?" Jesus asked them. "You call me teacher, you call me Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I've set you an example as how you should have done, how you should do as I have done for you. Very, very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who has sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." Why in the world would, during the Last Supper, Jesus knows that His death is on the horizon, why in the world would He break out a basin of water and start washing the feet of the disciples? Now you got all. Let's take a side. Let's kind of paint the picture a little bit here. They didn't have tables. Anybody here, you're like, oh, feet, ugh, like disgust you. My sister growing up, like, it was like, and I don't know, they probably have a term for fear of feet. Like, it's like you see feet, it was like, she just, ugh. She didn't like feet. Anybody here like that? You're like, I'd rather not look at people's feet. Like, you go to like spas and you're like, people are massaging feet and you're just like, ugh. Well, they didn't have tables to hide their feet, and they wore sandals. Now, this may be totally revolutionary to your thinking. They didn't have like pavement and asphalt and concrete to walk on. They didn't have cool shoes like these or like what you're wearing that you could cover your feet up. And so now you're walking on dirt roads, and you're sitting down to dinner, most likely sitting somewhere around on the floor with a pillow of some kind, which means other people's feet were around your plate. Now, how many of you, you've seen some people's feet, and you're like, dude, I think if I was in that, I'd be like eating way over here. Like, I'm like, get my plate as far, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so you got to understand, this was very cultural for them to wash their feet right before every meal. Because who wants to eat dinner on the floor with dirty feet? Even more so, other people's dirty feet. I don't know, maybe some of you are looking at me like, that actually kind of sounds like an adventure. Let's do it. No. So Jesus was trying to show the disciples this. Is there anything lower in life than washing someone's feet? In the disciples' mindset, the answer is no. That is the lowliest of servant position, is to wash one's feet. Because they're sitting here looking and they're like, Jesus, you are the teacher. Jesus, you're not supposed to do this. This is supposed to be me washing your feet. Jesus, why are you doing this? Imagine you being in a classroom. Go back to your days of education in an academic setting, be in a classroom, and imagine your teacher walking in going, okay, I want everyone to take off your shoes. Most of you would be like, grab your cell phones and be like, dude, I'm calling my mom. Like, I need a new place to go to school. This is like, oh, man. Right? I mean, most of us would be like, this is awkward. When the teacher is trying to teach the student, and when the student starts to perceive the teacher showing them that in the place of life, the least of these shall be first. When I serve, I shall be in the... You get the picture. They're like, Jesus, you're the teacher. We're the student. You don't do this. We do this. It's a reality that shocked them to their core. You see, Jesus was actually still teaching the disciples by serving them. Because there's so many times in life, and I believe this is really where Jesus had the opportunity to look at the disciples and go, if you really want happiness, if you really want to see my kingdom come, if you really want to see the growth in your life like you talk about, then the position of servitude, the attitude of serving, this is your posture of your life. Even if it means grabbing a basin of water and cleaning dirty feet. You see, when we focus on caring for other people, we will position ourselves for God to focus on us. Jesus was washing Peter's feet, all the while knowing that just in a few short hours, Peter wasn't just going to deny him once, not just twice, he'd do it 3 times. Can you imagine washing the feet of somebody you knew was going to deny and betray you? Like the calm, cool, and collectiveness that Jesus had to walk in, it's kind of like, because you got to understand the scenario a little bit. Like, this is just following this, Jesus washing the disciples' feet. They had just had a long discussion to start dinner based upon them, Jesus being asked, which one of us is going to be the greatest? Can you imagine how much arrogance and ego was probably circling around in the atmosphere in that room with them? Like, Jesus, now that you're going, who's taking your place? And they were all sitting there like, the whole, I don't wear ties, whatever that, why do people do that? I don't get it. Maybe it's a Yale thing probably, I don't know. But we sit around and we go, Jesus, which one of us is going to take your place? And all Jesus is like, no, this is your place. No. This is your posture. Because if you want to be where I am, as a Christ follower, where we're supposed to emulate and replicate Jesus and doing everything we can to follow Jesus, this is where you find happiness. This is where you were. This is what you were born for. You see, we capture the heart of Jesus when we decide that a life lived serving others is a life well lived. Your motives are incredibly important. Do you serve others because it's like, wow, I wonder what I'm going to get out of this? It's like, wow, God, okay, I need a new car. I want a bigger house. So who do I need to serve today so that you'll provide for me? You see, that's what culture is saying. You always need to be the benefactor somehow. Was Jesus a benefactor of washing the disciples' feet? How many of you wish, they'd have had like some kind of like really special soap to wash your hands if you had to wash somebody's feet? It's like, you walk in and you get the hand sanitizer. It's like, did they have those stations walking out, I wonder, after the Last Supper? I don't think so. I don't think so. But if our motives are impure, if our motives are sitting back going, wow, you know what? I want to serve because the reality is I want to get, then we have missed the entire purpose on why Jesus called us to love people. Jesus wants your heart to be wrapped in love so that serving others becomes your primary lifestyle. It's not something that we just do. It's not just something we do when the church decides to have a compassion or a community service event. It's saying that other people are so important, other people are so valuable, that the Jesus I claim to serve would have went to the least of these, even if I don't agree with why, even if I don't believe in them. It's like, even if I don't understand them, even if I disagree with the choices they've made to get them here, Jesus still went anyway because he disagreed with why you chose to do things you've chosen. He disagrees with the way you make decisions now, and yet he still loves you enough. Get this, he still loves you enough to show up through all of your stuff. Some of you will get that later. See, serving others is about spreading God's love to the people who are desperately seeking after hope. Maybe hope is something you find to be very difficult. We lose faith, which means we lose hope. When the reality is hope is available and present to all of us who are actively looking for it. And when we find it, we start to do our service as followers of Jesus by helping others find that hope. And that hope is found through love. And people feel loved when they have people who are authentically serving. Stop investing every ounce of energy into building your kingdom and start investing yourselves into building God's kingdom. Because when you get to heaven, I promise you, when you get to heaven, nobody cares what kind of lifestyle you had here. Jesus is not going to look at you and go, man, you drove a really cool car. Why didn't you bring it to heaven with you? Jesus isn't going to go, man, you know what? Those choices you made, little me focused, but forget the people who are caught in the wake of all your choices. But because it benefited you, good. I don't think Jesus is going to look at us that way, right? He's going to go, why did you care so much about yourself and not enough about the people I put in your path? Because we are told and we are taught over and over and over again to build ourselves. It's about me. We have to approach the world with an attitude of serving. Do we approach every day? Every time we wake up, whatever our job is, are we actively looking for people who need the hope that if I say I'm a Christian, that when I say I'm a Christian, I profess that I'm a hope giver? Do people feel that? So what is an attitude of serving? It's very simply this: passionately seek after opportunities to go wherever we are needed and do whatever it takes to serve people. Passionately. Have you ever met somebody who was really passionate? Has anybody ever watched the Treehouse show? Like the guy who builds custom tree houses. Is there, if you don't, go like on YouTube and like, I don't even know I can't even remember the guy's name, but go watch the guy for 5 minutes. And you can just tell his DNA is like wrapped around building tree houses. He loves what he does. I don't know, I mean, maybe you can, I mean, he does like $250,000 tree houses. That's not going to happen in my backyard, but I mean, maybe if I got paid $250,000 to build a tree house, but it wouldn't last very long. I don't build very well. Passion. When we are passionate about something, it is felt by others. People around us see the change. People around us feel the change. When we find passion or we figure out what it is that we're passionate about, do you know the people closest to us are going to be like, whoa, where did that come from? Find somebody who has found their purpose in life and spend time with them, and you will have a new understanding of what passion is. Find somebody who is confused and like, just lost in the wilderness. Go to campus in a week and look at the difference between a freshman who has yet to declare a major and a senior who's finishing a major. Their purpose in life is completely different. People who are passionate have found their purpose. And we as Christ followers, our purpose is to love. Our purpose is to serve. Are you willing to go wherever? Are you willing to do whatever? If the answer is yes, then start today. Last week, if you were here, on the back of your fillable, you wrote some names. I hope you did. Of people in your life who needed you to pray circles around their life. Start with them. You're like, I don't know who to serve. Start with them. Look at Jesus's. Look at how Jesus modeled it. Like, oh, washing their feet. I don't recommend you go knock on their front door and go, hey, I'm here to wash your feet today. I don't think that'll go well. But could you take them a meal? Could you mow their grass? Like, I mean, think about this. I mean, it's not, you don't realize the small things. I had a conversation with Aiden yesterday talking about how it's the small things that are the difference between people who live a life seeking after purpose and ones who have found their purpose. Because it's the little things that matter. It's like going that last 10%. I truthfully believe it's a lot easier to start than it is to finish. Starts with simple acts of kindness. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to have those simple acts of kindness? You see, Jesus' life on earth was the ultimate display of the life we should replicate. And it was lived with the attitude to serve wherever and willing to do whatever it took. We capture the heart of Jesus. I want you to get this. We capture the heart of Jesus when we realize there are hurting people that live in our community, that attend our schools, that work right beside us, that are driving next to us. There are hurting people who need hope. They need loved. And it is our responsibility. If you call yourself a follower of Jesus, it is our responsibility, it's our mandate, it is our calling to bring that hope to them. You see, very simply this, being a Christian who does not love to serve is like having biscuits and gravy without biscuits. It is not possible. I haven't had biscuits and gravy in 4 months. You have no clue how hard that is to say. Thanks. You cannot love Jesus. You cannot follow Jesus if you don't love people. Because it's who He is. It's His DNA. It's His character. And He created you. And so in your journey to being more Christ-like, if you do not find yourself loving people more, then you're not on a journey towards Jesus. You're on a journey towards yourself. The world has always been and will always be hungry for someone to show authentic and genuine love. You see, when Jesus left, and what did He say? All the authority, all the power is now all for us, right? He gave us the authority to be the answer to people's prayer. He gave us the authority to bring light into their darkness. He gave us the authority to show the same love that they're desperately seeking after. Because when we have the heart of a servant, you will be blessed. Jesus said it to the disciples, you will be blessed. But I promise you, it won't be a blessing in the way you think it is. Have you ever been the answer to someone's prayer, like Jesus used you to show love to someone else? And the joy on their face, the excitement that they have in everything they are. Have you ever been in that position before? Like actually serving someone so much so that it's like, I don't know what I would have done. Have you ever had anybody tell you, I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't done A, B, C, or D? If you haven't, start seeking out those opportunities because it will change your life forever. Passionately seek after opportunities to do whatever it takes to serve people wherever you are needed. As the band comes back today, just a few questions I want you to reflect on this week. What beliefs do I have, do you have, that are keeping me from serving people? What is it in my mind? What is it in my heart that is keeping me from serving and loving people? What behaviors have I learned? Because as we have found, I was born and designed to love. I was born and designed to serve. What have I allowed to creep into my life? What beliefs, what feelings, what emotions have I allowed to take over my heart and take over what Jesus really wants from me? Am I willing to go wherever I am needed and willing to do whatever it takes to serve people? Am I willing to go wherever and do whatever? And then third, who in my life is hungry? Who in my life is hungry for someone to show authentic and genuine love through service? If you can't answer those three questions, then you need to have a head-on collision today with Jesus. Because He is going to put people in your life over and over and over and over again who need love, who need to be shown grace, who need to be shown mercy. And Jesus has tasked you, He's called you, and He's equipped you to be that answer to their prayer, to be that love, even if it means getting down on your hands and knees with a basin full of water and washing your feet. Because serving is the first step to people knowing you really love them. If you can't be willing to serve, if you can't be willing to posture your heart, if you can't be willing to take the position of service with an attitude that reflects Jesus' heart, if that is not something you are capable of doing, then you need to have Jesus come wreck your entire world. Because that's who He was. That's what He did. It is His heart, it's His character, it's His nature, it is what it's all about. His heart was wrapped in love, and He wants the same for you. Would you stand today? Today, God, help us understand and have the attitude of love, the attitude of serving. Because, God, You have called us, Lord, to do something significant. You have tasked us with showing Your love to a world that needs hope. Lord, help us be able to identify who in our life needs hope, who in our life needs love. That God, if we are not willing to go wherever and do whatever, Lord, let it start. Show us our next door neighbor. Show us the people who are at work with us. Show us our employers, our employees, the people who are in our classrooms, our friends, our teachers. God, show us. God, so that we can have a clear understanding and a clear picture of what wherever and whatever means. Because, God, people are hungry for hope. And they're hungry for us. They're hungry for us to show that hope to them. Because that's replicating Your heart and Your love for humanity. That we get back to the grace and the love and the mercy that You created us to show. And we put aside our beliefs. We put aside everything that we think, and we start to take on your heart. We start to take on your attitude of loving and serving others.